Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 477, recorded live on Friday, June 16th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning from the High Lords of Malkair on Sarlona, Voodu.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome back. We also have returning from the Lava Divers on Voodu Asheras.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome back. This should be a nice, fun show. Our screenshot of the week comes from Abu Bakr Boone gets lost in the lights in the Keeper's Sanctuary, and the 320th screenshot of the week. I'm pretty sure that's something that I haven't really bothered to admire, that screenshot there. I probably should have at some point in time. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of the recording. The next show will probably be next Saturday. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, not a lot of game news. In fact, I don't think there really was any game news. We got a little bit of community stuff to talk about, some feedback and comments from our listeners. But our main discussion this week is going to be on tactics for Reaper mode. Now, we're going to try and make a distinction here. We'll talk about it and touch on some build stuff. But we're mostly not going to be talking about build, on how to build for Reaper mode. What we're going to focus on is tactics. The reason for that is we're actually going to be doing another cast hopefully next week. There's going to kind of be a partner to this one that's going to be on building for Reaper mode. So this was going to focus on tactics. Our future one will focus on building. That's not to say we won't talk about builds and some, because they're very heavily interplayed. But we want to talk about some tactics for Reaper mode. It should be a lot of fun. And Voodu, in fact, you just put out another video on tactics for Reaper mode and tips for Reaper mode, right?
Ginger Spice's Survival Guide to Reaper Mode Part 2 with 20 more tips for you to be successful in Reaper Mode.
Yeah, we're kind of going to pull in a lot of that here and some fun stuff. But yeah, we'll kind of mostly have a pretty fun little discussion here. Voodu, do you want to start us off on some tactics and stuff for Reaper Mode?
Oh God, you're really putting me on the spot here. I mean,
don't do them all. Just do like one or two, and then we'll just kind of go around the circle.
Okay, I'm gonna say my favorite one right now, and this is kind of an old school tactic that was really popular back in old school epics. Back in the day, level cap was 20. We were doing epic was just epic. It wasn't epic, hard, normal, elite. And that was tough stuff. And so my favorite tactic to revive from those days is holding the door or holding the line. If you are in dungeons that have narrow passageways or doorway works great, you can have one or two people up there shield blocking, and they don't even have to be like real tanks. You grab a tower shield while everybody else sort of grabs the aggro from behind and is holding everything at that door, which is a nice choke point for everybody else to sit back and either pew cast spells, or maybe some of the other melees can get up there and swing their weapons at them without getting hit as much.
Sure. Anything else you want to say, or do you want to just go like one at a time around the table here?
You said one at a time, so that's the one I chose.
One or two.
I'm going to stick with hold the door for now.
All right, Ash, why don't you go next?
Well, I'm going to go with, again, a tactic that was heavily used in old epics or in any really challenging content, and that's just the idea of always having some form of crowd control available. If you're a melee, this means you invest in tactics and you can stun or trip, or you're using a paralyzing weapon. If you're a caster, then you're using greater command, hold monster, anything like that. Anything you can do to slow those mobs down, stop them from hitting you so you can get in some free hits, maybe get some helpless damage.
Yeah, it's really helpful. Tripping, stunning, those are all pretty handy to have. Those, they're handy anyways, but become even so.
stuff like SAP. There's lots of stuff out there that might not have been being used a whole lot. We kind of got into this mode of DPS, and just kill it super fast. But now you want to take a step back, because every class, every build can have some form of crowd control in it to some degree or another. And you want to make sure you've got something there. You don't want to have to just strictly rely on having a really strong DC casting wizard or something like that in your party. Although that's a really great one to have with you.
Yeah, whatever you can do, because the less you get hit, the more likely you are to survive. It seems to be a pretty good tactic in any place you might be going, but especially in Reaper mode, because things tend to hit a lot harder. So, let's see. I guess I should pick one then. Slow down. Mine's gonna be like you don't have to zerg through stuff. Now, having said this, you can adjust your skull difficulty so you can maybe not slow down too much, but slow down a little bit. Don't get crazy about splitting the party because you're gonna aggro more stuff. You're gonna get more more dungeon alert, which is gonna make it harder to move, which means you're gonna hit more, and that's getting hit more is not advantageous to your health. There's a few points in some quests, right, that you should stop. How are we gonna do this? Really quickly. What's our plan of attack? Because sometimes you need a little bit more of a plan than just charge. Charging is fun. Don't get me wrong. I like charge. That's a great tactic. It doesn't always work very well. So, be willing to be patient. If you need to slow down a little bit, that's fine. All right, next.
So one of my favorites is, and this is part of crowd control, which Asheras mentioned. Charms are great in Reaper mode, but what I really love to do is get the enlarge meta magic feat, and you can throw like a mass charm monster on a group of mobs that's way down the hall before they ever even aggro on you. You charm a few of those, and they're aggroed all on each other, and now all your melees and everybody else can go up there and beat on them safely, at least for a few seconds. So enlarge plus charms, totally awesome.
Nice.
Keeps the aggro off you. As a great form of crowd
Again,
control.
getting hit less.
Yep.
It's all about getting hit less. All right, Ash, you're next.
Okay, I'm going to go with always have some method of healing available on you, even in heroics, and use it on other people, not on yourself. It's way more efficient to heal your neighbor than to try and heal yourself.
Yeah, it really is. Although we suggested this a while back, that I think it would be kind of, if you wanted to relax the healing penalty, self-healing penalty a little bit, I think if they made it so that potions were maybe less crazy about that, or maybe even exempt from the healing, that would help a little bit. It's not like you get a lot from a potion anyways, but...
Yeah, but it's to the point where anyone who can carry wands, if you're talking about level 7 and 8 and below, and even in higher heroics are still somewhat helpful. But it's much easier for someone else to wand whip you in a lot of cases than any other self-healing method you might have. So
absolutely.
It gets invest in UMD, get those heal scrolls as soon as you can. And again, use them on others. Because one of the things is that a single Reaper can hit you for 200-300 points of damage in one hit, and when you're only healing for maybe 20 or 30 a pop, it takes a long time to get back up again.
Yeah, Voodu, you have a tip on related to that, don't you? About wands and...
Yeah, I mean, just, I don't know if you're suggesting about wand and scroll mastery, but I guess I'll mention that now because there's an enhancement that was blown off for years. Just thought it was a junk enhancement, but it's so awesome in Reaper mode. You get 75% extra healing out of wands and scrolls with that, and that really helps to mitigate some of the self-healing penalties, and it helps to throw bigger heals on other party members. Plus, if you're like a native healing class, it's great to stock up on heal scrolls and wands, because if you're sitting there healing everybody with your blue bar, with your spell points, you're going to run out of spell points really quick. So use your wands and your heal scrolls for sort of your maintenance healing, and then save your blue bar for those bigger emergency heals that you need.
Yeah, I was talking about bring some for friends. Carry.
Oh yeah.
Don't just go in with one wand. Right.
Yeah, if you're buying 1 or 2 wands at a time, you're probably not contributing enough to the healing. Everybody's got to pitch in, like Asheras was saying. And I have switched over to buying all unbound wands and scrolls of everything from restoration to heal to cure wands to potions or scrolls of fire shield, because if you're in a group and somebody runs out of heal scrolls or wands, that sucks. if you can slide them a stack, that's huge. They're a little bit more expensive to get the unbound ones. You get the bound ones from the guild vendor, but it's totally worth it. And realize, if you, it, might be a little costly to give somebody a stack of 100 heal scrolls, but they're going to end up using them on you anyways. So it's a big help. And like I said, it totally sucks when you run out of those kind of supplies in reefer mode.
And don't forget res scrolls too. Once you can carry those.
Yep.
Running out of those is even more awkward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Along the same lines, I'd say, and this will help some solo people a little bit more, but don't be afraid to use hirelings. Like, I know they're going to get trounced in reefer mode, I get that, but you can grab a cleric, you can park them at the beginning, or wherever you were last that's generally safe, go in, and as you're aggroing things, you can summon to them, or you can just use them between fights, right? Like, if you can get through a fight, and then while you're resting, instead of chugging a bunch of pots to heal yourself up, which is extraordinarily inefficient and time-consuming, summon that hireling over to you, and they'll heal you right up. Much more efficient than using pots and stuff like that. I don't know that I would recommend using a hireling for like DPS, because they're probably going to get trounced pretty hardcore in reaper mode. But the healing ones can be helpful a lot, so don't be afraid to use them, and you can get better at using them and when to summon them and when not. What else we got?
I'm going to add to something. You said slow down, and that one is huge. I'm going to supplement that with, once you finish an encounter, you cleared all the mobs in the room, don't just run off to the next room. Wait until everybody gets, healed up, rezzed up, whatever they need. If half your party, if you got 2 dead party members and 2 more that are, at 50% health, don't run off to the next room. Like, help to get those people up, help to get those people healed, and make sure everybody's ready before you're running off and aggroing mobs in the next room.
Yeah, that's a good one. Just keep them coming.
Okay. Well, my next one would probably be know your enemy. There's all these new champions out there. They each have their own specific things they do well, different protections. Do they have Death Ward? We mentioned, do they have a heal that happens at some point? Do they have certain types of DR? What type of who are the heavy hitters that really hurt when they hit? Understand what the different colors of skulls mean, things like that. Understand the 4 different types of Reapers and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and what you can and can't do with them, because that's really critical. The reality is that what I've found between the different skulls is that the base mobs that aren't champions really aren't that much different and aren't that challenging. It's when you get 2 or 3 champions in a room plus a Reaper, and knowing how to handle that situation is the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a good one. Let's see. I'm trying to think of which one I want to pull out here. I like this one. Festival cookies, or other random consumables you might have. These things are great, particularly at lower levels, when you're a little bit weaker, and the cookies are still actually somewhat effective. Because the cookies are only, like, at most, like, cash level, 10? They're generally not going to do a whole... The saves for them are pretty easy, and once you get past, like, higher mid-levels, the saves aren't really going to... Save stuff's not going to work as well. But there's a lot of ones that are really useful and can do some extra damage and really kind of boost what your DPS is doing. I particularly like the Call Lightning ones, or the Lightning Storm ones. You eat the cookie, and then for a little while it zaps anything that's around you. I really like that one.
The Comet Fall ones are good because they have the trip effect in addition to the damage. I love those. Oh yeah. There's a lot of good cookies out there. That was my next thing was going to be to take time to buff again. This is something that when I started the game, and for a number of years, you'd go into a dungeon, you'd buff. After a shrine, you'd buff. People would ask for buffs, things like that. That has disappeared for years now, where people just, they're starting the dungeon and they're off to the races. Maybe they buff as they run, but for the most part, content's been so easy you haven't had to. But now, use the stone skin cookies. Use the blur cookies. Give yourself a fire shield. Make sure you've got some death ward, got some FOM on you. I mean, get those old night shield. One of the Reapers does these magic missiles that hit for 20, 30 a pop. That's not fun. And you can protect yourself from that. Yeah, and it's very avoidable. So yeah, use your class buffs, use the cookies, use wands or scrolls, whatever you have to do. Share amongst your party again, buff each other. It's a really great idea.
That doesn't necessarily mean you have to stay at the shrine for 5 minutes and buff. And like you can get some of that stuff off a lot faster, and as you're
Yeah.
kind of especially if you've backtracked to a shrine, you can kind of buff on the move a little bit and stuff like that. But yeah, buffing is really good. Kind of along the line with the festival cookies, there's other consumables that you can get in some other places. The air elementals from Crystal Cove, if you still have some of those around. I think you can get. There was some from the Night Revels, right? Isn't it like a gargoyle or something?
Yeah, there's something. Maybe like a wolf or something like that, or
Yeah, something along those lines.
yeah,
Those can be
the shadow
helpful.
ones.
Hey, scrolls that for spells you don't normally cast can become helpful. Summon monster scrolls, just something for them to chase a little bit and give you a little extra time. That can be a big help in keeping them
Yeah,
alive.
summons are great because I think Voodoo had mentioned the charming, but a lot of the other mobs you summon don't have the negative limitations on them that you have as a player character. So your summons are typically still very powerful, even in higher skulls, and they're worthwhile. So the Beholder summonings, some of those ones you can get with the Zoriat stuff, all good stuff.
Mystic Dragon Riders, giving a shout out to Petrify Stones.
Those
Another,
are so huge.
Very
You know,
nice, yes.
a lot of the community either doesn't know or has forgotten about those. Those are super cheap to craft. You don't need very high crafting levels. In fact, you can do the minimum level 3 ones for lobby questing, and you don't have to have any crafting levels. All you need is it's 10 essences and some of those yellow Sybaris dragon shards, and you can make a 10 stack of them. And they're just so giant. They have pretty good DC for being, a consumable like that you can craft so cheaply. And you can stone a champion, and it's petrification, not flesh to stone. So it actually works on mobs that aren't flesh. So like golems, for example, or undead, for example, you can petrify them with these cheap little silly little petrifying runestones. And when you have your whole party throwing those, it is so helpful.
yeah, along the same lines as the consumables too. It's heroism pots, greater heroism potions, haste potions, rage potions, Yugo pots. These are all things that you can start utilizing more effective. You may not have needed them before, but now +2 to hit with a normal heroism potion can be the difference between you living and you dying. There's a couple places you can get greater heroism pots. There's the what's the guy's name in House J, right?
There's Jaunty.
Yeah, and he's over by Delaire's behind the building that's next to Delaire's graveyard, I think. You can also get them in Evening Star for commendations, although you may have other things you want to do with commendations, so keep that in mind. But
Planar Gird's still a great item too.
yeah, Planar Gird. There's a necklace from Shavrath that has them as well. Are there other consumables you guys want to give a shout out to here?
Let's say restoration potions that you can get with Druid Commendation turn in. You may have noticed that your lesser restoration pots not curing your stat damage anymore in Reaper mode because of the way it scales. You're getting nothing out of them. Those are still good to cure like exhaustion and fatigue, but if you need to cure stat damage, you need to maybe have some restoration scrolls or even greater restoration scrolls. But you can get potions of restoration, which also heal negative levels from the Druid Commendation turn in Evening Star.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, the Mysterious Remnants turn-ins are an option as well. You can get haste, rage, water breathing, jump. You can get the lasting elixirs there. You can get the eternal flasks for freedom of movement or displacement or death ward. Lots of good stuff there.
Wands of Stone Skin are a huge one too. There is a shop in the 12 inside the house that I've talked to even longtime players that didn't realize there's a shop back there. It's called In the Runes, and there's a few things available there that you can't get from any other vendors in the game, and one of them is Wands of Stoneskin. I mean, even if you are a caster that can cast that spell, carrying wands instead can really help to extend your spell point pool. Instead of spending your spell points to cast that, you just use wands, and you can use wands to throw it on your party members as well. That gives you 10 DR for a limited period of time, so that's really helpful, especially in these lobby quests.
Yeah, and I see in your notes you also have the Greater Stalwart Trinket, which can proc Stoneskin on you as well. So.
I've been wanting to get one of those. Crystal Cove hasn't come out since Reaper Mode. I put that one in there based on one of my channel viewers' comments said that is awesome. And actually, one of my guildies uses it too for low levels and finds that the Stoneskin proc from that is really, really awesome in lobbies.
Yeah, and it gives you a little extra hit points too, which never hurts. What else? What else we got out of here?
Protect your healer. That's the next tactic. If you're lucky enough to have a healer in your party, that is awesome. But they can't really heal themselves. I mean, they can do maintenance healing on themselves, but if they're taking some big hits, throw them some heal scrolls, keep them up, because when they go down, you're going to suddenly find out that all that healing you've been getting is gone. So keep your healer protected.
Yeah, indeed. That's a big one. And you notice that a lot of this stuff too. You can use this stuff in even in Elite or Hard or something, depending on your skill level and how long you've been playing the game and stuff like that. But a lot of this stuff is stuff that we were doing back when level cap was like 12, 14, 16.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, this is one of the things I said at the beginning of my video. I just made, Reaper Mode should have been called old-timey DDO, because it's just bringing back all the old school stuff.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Yeah. This is walking to school uphill both ways.
Yep.
What else we got?
Well, I think that a lot of folks are doing Reaper mode in heroics. So, a lot of what my advice is geared towards more the first 20 levels, and even more particularly the first 10 levels of the game. And, so then I come to defenses, and, AC kind of gets thrown by the wayside in the epic segment of the game, and it's all about the PRR and the MRR. But, especially in the lower heroics and in mid heroics, AC matters. And, so you really want to pay attention to that if you can, and, focus on all aspects of your defense. Get your saves up. Get some AC, and still get some MRR and PRR. The recent Kenneth crafting gives you the ability to get access to those a lot earlier than maybe you could before. So, but focus on your defenses as well, not just your offense.
Yeah. So let's talk about defense a little bit. What should people be looking for when they're looking at defenses?
You really want to layer your defenses. Don't just rely on any one or two things. And there's been this culture in DDO for the last few years that make your 4 or 5 green steel displacement clickies, and that's all you need. You can't rely on that anymore. There's too many mobs with true seeing. You really have to have multiple layers of defenses if you want to be survivable in Reaper mode. And you want to talk about what some of those things are?
Yeah. We talk about how to, there's PRR, which is probably still, I would say, is probably the most important one. Not to say that other ones are not important, but I think PRR is going to give you the most bang for your buck, at least until you get to 150 PRR. Then it's going to start being less good than a lot of the other things.
Fortification is another huge one too. Don't wait till heavy fortification. You can get decent fortification before that. You can get augments that are level 4 that give you 75% fortification. They're 8 shards from one of the collectible traders in the market, and then you can get heavy 100% fortification augments at level 8, and you can even supplement those, like the 75% one to get closer to 100%. Past lives or other sources. So don't blow off fortification. Don't be that person that's just, I just wait till I get heavy for it. You need as much fortification as you can, as quickly as you can. Even if it's early levels, even if you only get 30, 40, 50% fortification, you get the best that you can, craft or find.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I find is most different about early heroics is that the champions are critting a lot more. The traditional mobs you didn't really have to deal with crits much until you got to about level 8 or 9, typically in the game, maybe level 7. But until you started encountering trolls and ogres on a regular basis, it really wasn't a concern. But nowadays, you get a champion at level 4 and it crits you, it hurts a lot.
Hmm.
So get the fortification as early as you can, and like you said, even if it's a smaller number, and work it up because every little bit helps.
Well, it used to be that you didn't have to worry about fortifications much because if something critically hit you, it wasn't hitting you that hard in the first place. So doubling the
No.
damage wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, and when you got to trolls and ogres, that things that hit harder, those crits started to become a lot more noticeable. But getting those crits now that are, I mean, some normal hits on like Reapers and some champions will get you for most of your life. A crit might just kill you outright. So definitely worth looking into. We talked about you mentioned displace. I think blur, displace, miss chances, incorporalities.
Ghostly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all those kind of things are great to find if you can get them. They're a little harder to get at lower levels, obviously. Um, and
I want to mention, since we're talking about low-level blur, a great source is you can get the level 3 Bracers of Wind from the House C challenges,
yeah,
and those have all-on blur, level 3. And there's one of the trinkets from Crystal Cove, I think, which is level 4 that has it as well.
Good ideas.
yeah, it's a good place to get some stuff. There's other things, other spells that we've mentioned. Stone Skin, we've mentioned Night Shield. Shield also helps protect you from magic missiles, which can be a big thing. I'm trying to think of other defenses. It kind of covers most of the stuff, but I mean, look for ways to be more defensive. I would say if you're gonna be, this is kind of more of a build thing, but if you're gonna be going in Reaper mode and really challenging in Reaper settings, I would err for and shoot for defense more so than offense, particularly at the earlier levels. Just from the standpoint that if you don't invest in defense, one hit will take you out of the fight, and at that point your offense becomes 0. So
That is correct. DPS
Well,
becomes 0 when you're dead.
yeah, and raising is really hard to do unless you've got an Undying Court favored solar cleric at level 6, or until someone can use raised dead scrolls, which is typically around level 7 or 8 at the earliest, even with a charisma focused build.
yeah, and another kind of interesting thing to keep in mind when we're talking about some of the defenses, because of the way they've added spells to different classes lists, you can actually use these consumables even though you're not necessarily, quote, the correct class. Great examples of this would be blur wands for clerics. You can just use them because clerics and favored souls can get blur from the War Priest tree, which means that they can just use the wands, even if they don't have the spell in their spellbook, or even if they don't have the right enhancement to be able to use blur. Raise dead and resurrection scrolls for paladins. Again, it's a very similar thing. So,
We're
That's a good
talking
point.
about layers of defense, and I want to give a shout out to resistances, and the old school cargo buffs can be really helpful too, especially in lower levels, like single digit levels. But having also situational absorption items is huge, and we already mentioned fire shield scrolls. Everybody should have fire shield scrolls. 50% absorption of fire or cold damage, it's a giant. Other situational absorption items are huge too, but I also want to give a special mention to poison resistance. If you've been doing Reaper mode, you've probably got these stupid champion poison dots that hit you for crazy damage, and that sucks. Well, you can craft poison resistance now in the new Cane of Crafting, and it's actually something that I've worked into my gear set, is actually having some of that poison resistance. It helps, every time that poison dot is ticking, if you can pull off 20 points of that every time, that can mean the difference between you surviving and you being dead.
do poison neutralization potions work on that stuff?
No.
Okay. Can't remember if I've tried that or not.
Your daily dice rolls is a great way to access some of this stuff too, because I know I always get fire shield potions from the daily dice rolls on a regular basis.
I don't get those on a regular basis. What are you doing with those dice rolls?
I guess I roll well. I don't know. I get a lot of ML15, ML20 hastes and fire shields, and yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Heal Amp's another giant one for defense. I don't. Maybe it doesn't neatly fall under the defensiveness category, but Heal Amp is so important. If you're running around with 30 or 40 Heal Amp, that's not enough.
And oh my goodness, if you're gonna play a Warforged, like I love Warforged. I'm not a Warforged hater, but invest in some healing amp for crying out loud. You're not gonna be able to self-heal yourself very well, so get that heal amp in there.
A great source of heal amp that some people have kind of forgotten about is heroic green steel. You can get massive heal amp on a heroic green steel weapon, which may not make the most sense if you're a melee, although you can craft a triple positive, so which has greater disruption, which is really nice for undead. But unless you're fighting a lot of undead, you're probably not going to use that as your primary weapon, as a weapon if you're DPS. But if you're like a caster and you're dual wielding caster sticks, consider working a heroic green steel heal amp item into your gear set, and trying to get maybe some of your caster stats on a different kind of item other than your weapon.
Yeah, I feel like heal amp was something that was really like only for tanks or melees for a long time, but especially with this damage reduction or healing reduction you've got, heal amp should be on every character now.
And just to put a number on this, I showed my heal amp in this video that I just did, and as level 13 with 200 heal amp. That's a very achievable, and that's with a heroic green steel item. That's an achievable number. And if you're rocking Wanda and Scroll Mastery on top of that, which is 75% more healing from like a heal scroll, you can throw heal scrolls on yourself for a pretty decent amount.
Yeah. Another consumable we didn't really mention very much. You can get them from the store, which is probably where you're going to have to get them if you want to get a lot of them. But the lasting stat potions are not terrible. I always tend to get them from the daily dice, which is why I can't remember them now. And I'm terrible at using consumables. I'll admit that right out of the gate. I don't use enough consumables that I should. But you can get potions that are +2 to all stats for, an hour? Which is not terrible. So you can also get similar potions from Combinations of Valor as well, provided you don't mind spending Combinations of Valor in that manner. What else should we
One thing I would say is it's called Reaper mode because there's Reapers, and Reapers all have one thing in common: they're incorporeal. So don't go into Reaper mode unless you have a ghost touch weapon or some way to bypass incorporability. Because or a warlock, or the ability to do spell damage that doesn't care about incorporability, because you've really got to be able to hit these guys. They hit hard, they hit fast, and they'll kill you quickly, especially at lower levels. And if you can't hit them, all you're seeing is just miss, incorporeal. That's annoying. And the other thing is that the Fear Reapers especially don't come near you, and they do this AoE dot when you're far away from them, and sometimes they spawn where you can't get them. Like I was just running Oob, and one of them spawned on the other side of the bridge where you run across the bridge and there's like the fire that shoots at you at the first bridge, and there's these archers over there and you can't reach them. Well, if you don't have some sort of ranged method to hit that guy, he's just going to fear dodge you to death. So you've got to always come into every place with incorporability and some sort of ranged attack. Even if you're a paladin or a fighter and you're a two-handed sword wielder or a two-weapon fighter, bring something else to chuck at people.
Yep. All good stuff. You can, in terms of the ghostly stuff, you can, obviously you can get ghost touch weapons, and there's been reports that some Ghostbane stuff might be coming back. Not like it was, not the Ghostbane of everything, but sounds like we might get Ghostbane back into the loot systems a little bit. But there's also some items that actually give you just ghostly stuff, which not only makes you incorporeal, but also gives your weapons the ability to hit things like that. Or ethereal. The ethereal bracers, spectral gloves, those kind of items can be really handy for that as well.
The ghost waking cloak is good for that. There's lots of different things like that are kind of a little bit higher, I want to say mid-heroic levels, but there's good stuff out there.
Since we're talking about specific types of weapons that are good to use in Reaper mode, I want to give a special mention to Vorpals, disruptors, smiters, paralyzers. Everything old is new again. It's old-timey DDO. Welcome back to DDO 2010. Remember when you used to love to use your Vorpal weapons and your paralyzers? Well, guess what? They work amazing in heroic Reapers because Vorpal don't care if it's a champion. Vorpal doesn't care if it's got giant damage reduction. If you roll 20, dead. I got a Guildie who's tuning in right now, who stands in the back with her Vorpal repeating heavy crossbow and just mows down mobs, and it's a giant help. So, maybe put the DPS weapon down situationally and maybe start using a Vorpal. It's really, really awesome. Or, if you're a range tune, get a paralyzing bow. This stuff is really helpful.
Or if you're a ranger, there's also paralyzing arrows.
Oh, right.
Which is another way to go. And just to be clear, too, when we're saying Vorpals, we're talking about Vorpals, Disruptors, Smiters, Banishers. They're all things that kind of fall into that same Vorpal strike die kind of a scenario. So get one for every occasion if you can. So.
One thing to also mention, there is also a Ruby of Ghostbane augment you can get that you can slot on any weapon to get that ghostly effect. You can typically find those on the auction house.
Hell yeah.
Let's see, what else should we talk about here? There's some more stuff that we had in there.
Yeah, one of my favorite new ones, and a friend of mine suggested to me in game a few weeks ago, is a lot of people think that the Carnage Reapers are the scary ones, and they are. Don't get me wrong. All the Reapers are scary in their own way, but I think Famine Reapers are the really deadly ones. Their spells are horrifying. There's Cyclonic Blast, Magic Missiles, Disintegrates. As soon as you see a Famine Reaper, put on your Pale Lavender Ion Stone. That should be your knee-jerk reaction you want to get into the habit of. Or if you don't have a Pale Lavender Ion Stone, then other spell absorption items. This has kept me alive, so many times just in the last few weeks since I've been doing that is a huge help. You see a Famine Reaper, put on your spell absorption immediately. As soon as they're dead, switch it back.
Sure.
Yeah, the cloak that comes out of Giant Hold, I think, is one of the easier ones to get for that.
Jeweled Cloak.
Jeweled Cloak, yeah.
Yeah.
Really easy to get.
Does that come from Pop? Or which one does that come from?
Oh.
It definitely comes from Maze of Madness. I think
it's Maze of Madness and Trial of Fire, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
Or the Underworld. If you do the whole chain, you get it. It's pretty commonly in the chain reward.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to ensure you're going to get it.
Generally speaking, yeah. Let's talk about a little bit of the mechanics of Reaper mode, because I think you have a good note written in here about leaving a dungeon and what that means.
Yeah, if you're in a Reaper group, if you're in a Reaper dungeon, and you got to leave for whatever reason, if you recall out, it will lock that dungeon, and nobody else will be able to enter. And so if they had a group up, if they have an LFM out, you've screwed them out of anybody else coming into that dungeon. So if you have to leave, log out, exit the game, don't recall out.
Yeah.
You're gonna make some enemies if you do that.
Potentially. Yeah, I think it's just a good thing to kind of mention and how some of that stuff works. Let's see. You'd mentioned Pale Lavender Ion Stones. This is an item that's a little bit harder to get, although it drops more than people think it does. The Cursed Blade of Jack Jibbers, which is an epic. It's an epic or legendary. Is it epic or legendary? I think it's actually epic.
Yep.
Epic quest out in Three Ball Cove. First of all, it's a pretty decent XP quest. A lot of people like to run it for XP, but.
Mm-hmm.
What I was doing for a while was I was trying to run 2 of these a day. You don't need to completely grind the living daylights out of this stuff, which I don't like to grind stuff just in general. So at most I tend to do something twice in a day. But you run this a couple of times, and when I say 2 times a day too, I mean like I'd run it 2 times on Monday, wasn't on Tuesday, run it 2 times on Wednesday, maybe Thursday. It comes out to be like maybe 3 or 4 days out of the week. So I'm only running this a couple times, but this item is pretty darn useful because it brings you back from the dead. You're gonna die again, but it brings you back from the dead, which helps mitigate certain factors of chance, right? Like you get lag locked. That's pretty handy to come back from. Or let's just say that you're going a little bit faster than you should for the group, and the person in the front turns the corner a little bit too, shall we say, speedily. Maybe you're in Temple of Elemental Evil, for example, and you don't see anything on the side. You go straight towards that mob that's down the center, and you don't realize you run past two hallways. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to kill you, or you turn the corner, and lo and behold, what is normally a pack of 5 kobolds is 4 reapers and 3 champions. Like all of that kind of stuff, right? That all happens. And a lot of times it leads to death. And sometimes it leads to party wipes. So the Jack Jibber's Blade can really kind of help pick your party up off of the floor. And when you're doing that, everyone doesn't have to use it at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm. That's huge.
So coordinate your use of Jack Jibbers, right? So
that's a very important one. If people are just using it all willy-nilly, you can, if you get a wipe again and everybody used it, you're done unless somebody wants to start using cakes.
Yep.
But while we're talking about the Jibber's Blade, another good tactic to use when you're using that is when you raise yourself. If you don't move, a lot of times the mobs won't aggro on you. So you use your gibbers, just stand nice and still, throw some res scrolls real quietly, and even though you might have mobs right next to you, they won't aggro on you. I don't know why that is, but that's definitely been really helpful.
Although I'm still in favor of go down the hallway and don't take a res of a pack of mobs.
If it makes sense. Today, we had a wipe in at the end of, what was it? Memoirs. And that's a really small room. You can't run to an end of a hall, right? But, one of us hit our gibbers real quiet like it just stood there and started throwing raise scrolls on everybody else. And those mobs never aggroed on us. So it's kind of a quirky mechanic, but, if that's what you got to do to save the quest, it's a lot better than failing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've heard that there is something you can do. Is it maybe a globe of invulnerability or something like that will help you to not die from the Jibber's Blade? Is that correct?
I don't know if that's working as intended. So I don't really want.
We will not speak about that anymore.
Heaven forbid we talk about things that aren't working as intended. It's not. I don't think it's an exploit, but yeah, if you're in a glow, right, it kind of doesn't hit you. You don't die at the end of it. Is that what it is? Something like that.
It removes the curse off of
okay.
you.
Okay.
And so yeah, you won't die again, and you can use lesser globe or regular globe.
And you can
get scrolls
scroll
of that stuff. Yeah, you can get scrolls of lesser globe from, like the portable hole, for example.
Everyone who's listening to this and is eager to get into a little bit more Reaper mode is going to start going to all of the places where there's scroll vendors and wand vendors and start loading up.
Something to get if you that I always like to have on me on all characters because it's an ML1 item is the Harper pin. That's saved my ass more times than I can count.
It's huge.
For those who don't know, for those who don't know what it is you get it by turning in the favor patron for the Harpers. At 125, they'll give you a lesser pin, which has a 10-minute cooldown. At 250 favor, I think they give you a greater pin, which has a 5-minute cooldown. They share a cooldown, so you really can't use them simultaneously. But basically, anytime you're under crowd control of any sort, paralyzed, held, in web, whatever, you hit this thing, and it should free you from the crowd control.
Something we should mention, too, when you're talking about Fire Shield and Cold Shield, it protects you from webs. Or at least it's supposed to.
Yeah.
So, stuff that you can think about.
I don't know if I knew that. That's a good tip.
Yeah.
There's also a low-level item that does that, too, isn't there? The armor of some sort?
Maybe?
There's the cloak that you can get from the turn-in from the item in Spawn of Whisperdoom, and it's called the Widow Weave Cloak.
That's it, yes.
Yeah, it's a rare turn-in reward when you get the I think it's the goblet, the silver goblet that can just be laying around the dungeon and spawn a Whisper Doom. Yeah, that's pretty nice. But I believe that only protects you from like natural webs and not magical webs. I'm not sure.
That's one of those rare items that a lot of people don't know about.
It's pretty rare, but what's cool is if you want one of those, watch the auction house. A lot of times you're gonna see them really expensive, but then a lot of times you see them cheap because people don't they just find it in their inventory. They don't realize how rare it is. They just post it up there for 5K, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll take a Widow Weave cloak for 5K.
Yeah, right. Let's see. I want to talk a little bit about choosing quests and choosing skulls kind of at the end of our discussion. Before we get there, some other things that I think what we should make sure we mention is meta magics and when to use them and when not to use them. And be selective about what you use them on. I think a lot of people tend to just pull a meta magic onto their hotbar, turn it on, and leave it on. Some things you might want to consider about that is, there's probably a bunch of spells you don't need Quicken on. Like spells that you're only going to cast at a rush shrine. You don't need to use Quicken on.
Yeah, quickened buffs are not necessary.
Yeah. One of my favorites is the Avard's Black Tentacles. I turn off Maximize and Empower on that. Mostly because when I'm using it, I'm not really using it for damage. And I haven't noticed it to be worth the damage in terms of keeping those on. But I use it for crowd control. So I turn the damage off. The damage meta magic's off, so I'm not burning through spell points as much. I'm sure there's people out there that like to use the damage meta magics on that spell, and that's totally fine. But so those are some things you can consider to get your spell points farther along.
As a druid, I'm a big fan of turning off Maximize and Empower for like Earthquake, because it's the same kind of thing. It does a little bit of damage, but it's not really worth spending all those extra spell points to do a little bit more damage. It's the crowd control effect you really want. And I do the same thing for Sunburst. I get an SLA of Sunburst. I got all the metas on it for that, of course. But my regular version of Sunburst, a lot of times I'm throwing a double shot, the SLA followed by the regular. But on the regular, I just have Quicken. I turn off all the damaging ones because I just really want the blinding effect. So that helps to extend the spell pool.
Yeah, another one I've liked is if you're a DC caster and you want to reduce will saves, Hypnotism. If they save against Hypnotism, actually it might work even if they do save it, but it reduces will saves by 3 for a couple seconds. So I turn off Heighten on Hypnotism because even if it lands, right, if somebody hits it, they're going to be unhypnotized. So it's not the best of crowd control spells anyways, particularly at higher levels. But even if it's just for that, if you turn off Heighten, it's like 10 spell points for an extra 3 DC whenever you cast the next enchantment-based spell, right? So you can do stuff like that and kind of think about what metamatics you have turned on for your different spells. I also tend to not extend most buff spells anymore. Now, when I say most, I mean the ones that are the longer duration. If the duration is your level, and then I generally am not going to do that. Just because especially for like jump or something like that, jump costs 10 spell points normally. If you extend it, it costs 20 spell points. So I can just cast it twice, and I'm not losing any spell points. And in fact, I'm probably better off because I'm probably going to die in the next 10 minutes anyways. So I'm probably going to have to cast it again anyways. They can do stuff like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. Conserve your spell points. I know I was running TRs for years and years, and if I had a favorite soul or a cleric or anything like that, I would never use my spell points up all through leveling heroics. But I'm leveling a couple healers right now in Reaper, and almost every quest, because I'm doing a lot of party healing and I'm buffing again and such, I'm watching my spell points. So those meta magics, which you used to worry about and then stopped, that's another old timey thing to get back into.
Yeah. Let's see. There was something else I wanted to mention before we talked about. Lost Souls. If you don't use a lot of spell points, maybe don't eat the Lost Souls if if your cleric is like half of their mana bar left.
Yep.
Like I get that I get that, and particularly in epics, right? A monk with say 300 spell points might like to eat a lost soul and get some of those spell points back. Hey, that's reasonable. But if your cleric is out of spell points, give it to the cleric, or the DC caster or something, right? So recognize that the lost souls are there, and maybe a little bit of coordinating between lost souls would be. Now, if they all run past the lost soul, by all means, pick it up. I mean, otherwise it's just going to waste, right? But don't just go pick up all the things you find on the ground.
I have one more tactic that I'd like to mention.
Yeah.
This is maybe perhaps a little more meta, but think carefully. Pick and choose your dungeons. There's so much XP available. There's so much regular XP available. You get 120% bonus to regular XP from Reaper dungeons that you really can pick and choose. You don't have to do all content anymore. You can easily get to 20 and skip half the content. And so, some of these longer dungeons, you may want to skip, and so one of the examples that I used in the video I just did is I talked about Tier de Con. If you're doing that on higher skulls, that can be a really long slog to do that at level 7. And you can go into like Bargain of Blood or the Grave Robber at the same level, spend a fraction of the time in there, and get basically the same amount of Reaper XP. So if your focus is mostly Reaper XP, you might want to consider doing like some of the shorter dungeons, or if you're going to do Tier de Con, like I said, because there's so much heroic or regular XP available already, maybe skip the optionals. You can spend a lot of extra time chasing down those tiers, and for what? Regular XP? Do you really need regular XP? You can shave half the time off that dungeon by just going straight to the end, and you're still getting most of your Reaper XP. But really pick and choose. And some of these silly little dungeons, whether it's the mini quests out in Thrennel, or the Grave Robber, or silly little quests like this, they give Reaper XP. Mm-hmm. So. And I can't emphasize enough too, like pick and choose your optionals. Really consider, do you want to do that optional just to chase down a few hundred regular XP, or even if it's a few thousand, if you're going to spend a lot of time and resources on that optional, maybe you should skip it.
What's more important there, I think, is not necessarily getting just optional XP where it just rewards you an extra, 500 or 700 like the tiers do, but if you're interested in maximizing your Reaper XP and your Quest XP, what's more important is all of your quest objectives, your kills or your breakables, all that sort of thing, your traps, all that multiplies on your Reaper XP as well. So those are the things, if you're going to spend extra time, you want to get, because that's going to hit both your Reaper XP and your Quest XP. Those optionals that just give you extra Quest XP, they do nothing for your Reaper XP earn. So to me, those are less valuable because, like you said, Quest XP is falling off of trees at this point.
What are some other quests that you might want to do or not do?
I really like quests that have low mob density, because the fewer the mobs, the fewer the champions, and the fewer the Reaper spawns. So Spies in the House, or Prove Your Worth, for example, where it's a little bit more Mario, there's a little bit, maybe a lot of traps, that sort of thing, but there's lower mobs. Those on Reaper aren't that much more challenging than they are on Elite, because what really changes is when you get the Reapers and the champs. So I like those ones.
When you have quests that have NPCs that you have to protect, Bookbinder Rescue, Guard Duty, Stand Your Ground, all it takes is one champion to get those guys and they're dead and you've failed. So I've been avoiding those kinds of quests. Even some of the more traditionally popular quests, like Let Sleeping Dust Lie or Ritual Sacrifice. I mean, Veil's one of the most popular packs. But you know what? I've been in Let Sleeping Dust Lies where a triple damage ogre drops right on Lycosa the Spider Queen and hits her before anybody has time to react. She's dead. You failed the quest. I don't want to spend a half an hour on Reaper 4 or 5 Let Sleeping Dust Lie just to get to that and have it fail because the spider died when there was nothing I could do. If I'm just knocking out Reaper racial lives, then I don't need to flag for Shroud. So I can skip stuff like that, or quests that have a lot of self-healing mobs, Running with the Devils, the Feast or Famine end fight, lots of clerics in there, Prey on the Hunter end fight. I'm not saying you have to skip these quests, but these are other questions you want to very carefully consider, and maybe want to do them on lower skulls if you do them, because when you're dealing with a lot of self-healing mobs, Claw of Valkur, the healing scorpions in there, are ridiculous. So, avoid them or do lower skulls. Good thing to be aware of.
Another one is the phase spiders too. Anything that phases right now, there's apparently a not working as intended feature wherein when they phase and come back in, they can change into a champ and come back with full health, no matter where they were before. So you might want to. They said they did, but on the forums there's word that it hasn't been fixed yet. So
what they fixed, so here's what it was. Here's the way it was broken, is you'd get like a champion that phased in and out, whether it was a scorpion that went underground or a wraith or a phase spider, and every single time that it reappeared, it would reappear as a new champion fully healed. So they stopped that, but it's still sort of happening that first time they phase, where even if it's not a champ to begin with, a scorpion can go underground, reappear as a champ that's fully healed. After that point, after it's resurfaced as a champ that's fully healed, it's not going to do that again. So they've partially fixed that. It's at least it's doable now. But before, if you had a champion that like a scorpion that would go underground, and every time it came back up as a freshly healed new champion, you almost couldn't kill it.
Yeah.
Unless you had really good burst DPS, because those things go up and down so quickly, you would need to kill them so fast. It was just ridiculous. I've been there, and it's.
And throwing a couple healing scorpions in there, and then you're really housed.
Yeah.
Let's say choose. If there's a particular quest that gives you trouble, you don't skip it, right? You don't necessarily need to do these. You can red box a lot of quests too. Like you may not be flagged for Bloody Crypt or Shadow Crypt. You don't necessarily need to be. You can ask people if they've got of someone who's got it open, and you can sneak in those quests that way. So there's a lot of quests that you can red box. In general, other than raids, if there's a door to the quest, you can red box it. Other than raids, if it's the person who sends you somewhere, then that's harder. Then usually you can't red box that because you can't get the portal UI. But if there's a door to it, you can red box it unless it's a raid. So, and I think we kind of mentioned time a little bit, right? Like, don't be afraid to skip some longer quests, or tone down your skulls. One of the two, right? I can't imagine doing like 10 skull proof of poison or something like that. That just sounds atrociously unnecessary, right?
Yeah, that was a quest that I would traditionally do, and I skipped that one now. It's just not worth the effort. There's so much other content I can do. There's so much XP available elsewhere. Why do I want to spend all this extra time and effort doing that quest?
I think you're probably amongst the few that were doing it to begin with. I think most people skip that quest in general. It's kind of a long quest. And if you don't have something to block magic missiles, you get a lot of magic missiles, which isn't that fun. All right, I want to close our discussion here. Let's talk about choosing your skulls. And let's give some advice to new and experienced players. How do you know what skull to choose when you're looking at a quest? There's kind of been a joke amongst some of us on Kyber that it's at least one skull per warlock in the party. But I think
that's a good one.
There's some other ways to do it too.
Well, if you're new to Reapers, you don't have a lot of Reaper points. If you're new to the game, you don't know the dungeon, you probably shouldn't join that R7 group where you don't even know where the dungeon is. If you're newer to Reaper, you probably want to stick to 1 or 2 skulls. If you're newer to the game, well, maybe you're not even doing Reaper yet if you're newer to the game. But I think the starting point really for even anybody, like even if you're experienced players, definitely start with the lower skulls and then work your way up. It's kind of a ladder system that I've certainly enjoyed working up. Start low, and if you find that it's easy, just start working up from there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say was, start with 1 skull, and if it's too easy, just keep track of it and go to 2 and go to 3, and you'll see that over time your ability is going to improve there. Or the other option is as well to run them over level. You get less XP when you run over level. I don't know we've really talked about the mechanic on that, but if you're not sure, then the more powerful you are, the easier it is. And then because I know I was running everything 2 levels over on the traditional bravery bonus method. But as power has gotten better, it's gotten a lot easier to run them at level and get the full Reaper XP, and then also now even bumping up the skulls as you go with that. So it's just a process. There's power to be gained by doing all of this, and as you gain that, you'll be able to do more. And as you also kind of either relearn some tactics or learn some new tactics, depending on how long you've been playing the game, you'll get better too.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can look at it, but don't be afraid of trying Reaper mode. If you find Elite to be moderate to ridiculously easy, then you can probably do Reaper 1. And you can kind of, keep using that same logic. Oh, Reaper 1 seems laughably easy. Look, I get that a lot of people, that's not going to be the experience, and that's totally fine. But if you run a quest on Reaper 1, consider running it on Reaper 2 next time. And just you can move up the chain there. You were mentioning the XP penalties. So the way it works, the heroic XP uses the same mechanics, other than it's plus 120% for the first time of you'd run it on Reaper mode for the heroic XP. This doesn't affect your Reaper XP. For Reaper XP, if you're at the base level of the quest, which is the level that it shows up as in the compendium, or the level of the quest on normal, you get maximum Reaper XP. If you're 1 level over, you get a 20% penalty. 2 levels is 50%. 3 levels is 70%. And then it keeps going up, right? And at a certain point, was the most you can be at 6 levels over, and it's 95%. Does that sound about right?
That's correct.
So if you really want the Reaper XP, 1 level or 2 levels. Now look, this goes back to choosing quests too, right? If you're just going to go up from 1 to 20 and then reincarnate and go back to 1 to 20, look, there's not really a reason why, if you had to take a level, you couldn't run something that's 1 level below you, and you're still going to get Reaper XP, right? You're not going to run it anyways, so maybe you want to run it and accept the fact you're going to get a Reaper penalty. But that's how those work.
You touched on... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, you touched on party size, and that is another factor. And I do understand that people's individual skill level is a factor too. But just generally speaking, party size can have a significant impact on the skill level that you can do. I've been in quests where if it's just me and a guildie, or just a few of us, where it might seem really, really tough, but the next life we do it with a full guild group, and now it's too easy. Just because we had, 3 extra bodies.
Sure, yeah. And your party makeup might make a lot of difference, too. If you're running a quest with 6 fighters, it's probably going to be a lot harder than if you run it with 6 warlocks. Just saying.
Well, one thing I'm unclear on with Reaper, and I've heard both ways on this, is there dungeon scaling with it, or is it just flat?
I mean, I think it just scales to elite, if you're talking about the number of mobs.
I'm talking about talking about mobs and number of players in party.
I kind of always presumed it's the same as elite, which is essentially to say that it scales, but not a whole lot. So.
Yeah, that was my understanding. Okay.
Yeah, I would also say too, don't be afraid, just for fun. Get a group of friends together. Go try something on 10 Skulls. We tried this. We tried Reaper Shroud, Legendary Shroud on 10 Skulls when it first came out. Look, we had no delusions of actually finishing Reaper 10 Skull Shroud. We just wanted to see what it was like, and it was pretty fun. We got our butts royally handed to us, and then some. We tried it on Reaper 5, I think, afterwards. And we got to the first portal and then realized how ludicrously long it would take us just to do that part, assuming we could survive. But it was fun to do, right? And don't be afraid of failure. Sometimes failing is fun. Okay, it's not fun to fail, but sometimes you can still have fun and find out, man, we were almost there. We almost did that. So
That's a really good point too. Don't be afraid of failure, and you're going to. The Reaper mode is difficult. It is a challenge, and so you sort of need to mentally prepare yourself. Like, you're going to die. And you're going to fail some content, and that's just part of like the Reaper experience. If you're looking for that next level experience, this is it. And you start with the low skulls, it's easier. But even some low skull content, if you're soloing, it could be really tough. I had somebody message me today. They're a little bit newer of a player, and they said, they tried their first Reaper one skull solo, and they felt it was way too hard for them. And they were like, I'm, going back to hard and elite, and that's fine. Maybe that person, isn't ready to solo even one skull, and that's okay. But yeah, be prepared for the level of challenge that Reaper mode gives.
And you may find you really love it. I know the damsels.
I love it.
The damsels weren't sure if they wanted it, and they tried it and they loved it. Some people try it and they don't like it. That's totally fine. That's why there's other difficulty levels. So
I have died more times in the last 4 months the Reaper came out, and than I have in the last 4 years, and I love it.
Yeah, it's true. Anything else we want to say before we move on?
There is one really important thing that even if you're not the biggest Reaper fan, there's a huge incentive to running Reaper, and that is that some abilities that you get from these Reaper enhancement trees work outside of Reaper mode, and that is working as intended. So the innate line, nothing in the upper, higher up in the tree, but that bottom innate line, the tier 2 and up, works outside of Reaper mode. And like I said, that is working as intended. And there are some really significant bonuses to be had from there. There's extra stats, there's extra hit points, there's extra spell points, all kinds of good stuff. So take a look at that innate line, and you may think, I'd really like that extra 100 hit points and +1 to all saves that come from the tier 4 innate Grim Barricade tree. So you might want to work towards that. I said, it's always on. Totally awesome.
There's other things like you can get wings and cosmetic stuff. So, but don't beat yourself up about it either. I would say that the biggest caution I have for people is look, have fun.
Oh yeah.
Don't feel like you have to run Reaper if you don't want to. Be willing to compromise and run with people. It'd be my suggestion if you want to run Reaper mode. It might mean you're not running the quest at the level and the skulls you want to run with, but I would suggest you will probably have more fun running something than waiting for the perfect LFM to show up to run the Reaper quest, the quest you want to run on Reaper at that skull level. And don't bully other people into adjusting what their LFM is. You can ask them if they would like to, but don't bully people into changing their LFM. That's just not nice. I got nothing else to say on this. Anyone else?
I'm good.
That's good stuff that we had.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to get into game news, and there isn't really any. The devs have been...
It's been quiet.
Yeah, the devs have been chiming in on some stuff, but it's mostly predominantly Linabelle chiming in on her, hey, Linabelle, fix this thread. Which is mostly her saying fixed or please tell me more, and having fun with the players. So, having said that, there is other stuff that we can talk about. The bonus days for the week. You get a 10% Buddy Weekend through Sunday, June 18th. This works with Reaper XP.
Woot!
And that's pretty significant. So for every party member you have other than you get more XP. You can get up to plus 50%. That's a lot. Let's see, store stuff. You can gear up for a new adventure. You get 20% off of cosmetic armor kits, hats, and helmets, as well as augments through June 22nd. You can also get plus 20 Hearts of Wood through June 22nd. The weekly coupon will get you a lasting potion of resist fire, plus 10 times 5. I've long derided and laughed at these freebies, but if you're running Reaper levels at low levels, plus 10 to resist fire is not too shabby. And there you go. There's the game news, which means we will go to community news with the 239th Chronicle. Let's see. The Cauldron of Night writes fiction about the Reaper. You can check out a cool story there. Axel speculates on what Ravenloft might bring to the game in a new video. The Highlands of Montclair have teaching raids tomorrow. We're actually doing the show before your teaching raids. Look at that. Do you want to talk about what you're doing?
Sure. So these are this is events that we've been doing for 4 years now, where we take in people that maybe they're new to the game, or maybe they're just new to raiding. So we're taking in raid newbies and we're teaching them how these raids work in a low stress learning environment. And tomorrow is Reaper's Fate and Fall of Truth, and the 2017 season is starting to get into final approach. We've got about maybe 4 events left after this week. But there's still time to get involved. There are a lot of reasons why people don't raid. People can be intimidated. Social factors are a big part of that. Maybe they feel like their skills aren't good enough. But these events are for you. If you're on Sarlona, we'd love to have you and teach you how these raids work and show you that raids can be a smooth and, most importantly, fun experience.
Yeah. Just make sure you flag first.
Yes.
Let's see. The Munchkin Summer Games are continuing on Kyber. The guild for the week. Timmy and the Lords are a small guild on Kyber with a good core group of players looking to expand their roster. Active and new player-friendly players are welcome to join. It's a level 150 guild. The comment for the week. What art or craft is your favorite character's little-known activity when not adventuring?
Well, what's yours, Patrick?
Thinking. I don't usually look at these beforehand, so I usually come up with this stuff on the fly. But that's kind of an interesting one to go with.
Well, Voodoo is a voodoo practitioner, and then Ginger Spice, people may know that is part of a girl band, girl power, right? When she's not adventuring.
There you go. Are there any videos of her singing?
You can look up a song called "Wannabe" up on YouTube, and you can see Ginger Spice singing.
Nice. Probably at this point, it's not just an art or a craft, but the character is probably looking for lost friends or crafting memorials, scrapbooking. We'll go with scrapbooking because of all the friends he's lost. I've had a lot of friends in the game that have moved on for one reason or another, but
that's a bummer.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, I'm there too. Here's to new friends.
Yay, new friends. T Dark Chidle in the chat says mine would be speed running if not for those teeny gnome hands that can't quite grip the controller right. Yeah. Let's see. We got a shout out in Fansite News for our show last week debating the proposed cleric changes. We'll talk about some of the stuff that people wrote in on that. DDO Players News broke tables, talking about there's a Kickstarter that you can get a D20 that's, I don't remember the size of it, but it's a much larger, I think it's like 400 times larger or heavier than a normal D20. Samus Grobo continues to stream DDO regularly on his Twitch channel. You can check him out. Pineleaf continued his travels with his Dragonborn in the latest YouTube video. Johnny the Savage runs Legendary Elite Black and Blue solo. Full Moon Fury describes his latest projects as well. DDO videos. So Axel DDO had another video talking about grind versus luck-based loot systems. DDO Tales of DDO, they will be live tonight at 2 a.m. Eastern Time, so you can check them out. Again, we're actually in front of their show for a change. If you want to have a little bit of fun, you can go watch their show from last week, or their play from last week. I snuck in and trolled them a little bit. It was kind of fun. Let's see. Some topics on the forums I wanted to highlight. LSD37 has a compendium light, which we'll link to, which was pretty slick. It's pretty robust about the different quests and favor and stuff like that. Also, Pang has a saga spreadsheet, so you can make a copy of it and use it to keep track of all your sagas for your different characters. So it's pretty slick there. DDOCast news. DDOCast was supposed to come back this week. It may not because of things changing, and I have more work coming up. So we may actually be taking a more extended break than I thought we were going to. But I'll let people know when DDOCast comes back. You can check us out on at DDOCast on Twitter. Best way to figure out if there's going to be one for that week. I usually tweet on Mondays if that's going to happen. Other news, I'm going to bring back the scavenger hunt this year. We did this a couple years ago, big long scavenger hunt. I'm not quite ready to post it out there, but letting people know there's going to be a scavenger hunt this year. Standing Stone Games has been generous and donated some turbine points, and I've got some stuff saved up from our donors, people that give money to the show. So there'll be autos boxes involved as well. So some good prizes. It's coming. Probably have that out next week at some point once I get through the last phase of my busy season. So that's coming soon. And also, if you're going to Gen Con, don't forget you can gather for buffs. We'll link to that in the show notes as well. That's in mid-August. So try to keep putting the word out for that so people know about it as well. All right, let's talk about some Lightning Post. Because it was a somewhat lively discussion based on what we're talking about with proposed changes to clerics, which was, lively everywhere else too, so why wouldn't it be lively for us as well? Edward wrote in, he said he thinks the current way is fine. If you can't turn and destroy, you hit Radiant Burst for light damage. What's wrong with that? It's an interesting point. I'm not actually sure how the damage compares, to be honest. I didn't really look at any of the numbers. Because under their proposal, Turn Undead would do some light damage. Compared to Radiant Burst, I'm not sure how much more it would do, to be honest. Idle Bigots wrote in and said, yes, he says do away with the whole hit die nonsense. It's way too complex. Just make it a straight DC. If they save against the destruction effect, then they're stunned or halted for 2 to 3 seconds or run away in fear for 2 to 3 seconds, augmented via domains. You have to remember this isn't Whale the Banshee, which will work on good 70% of trash mobs. This is Turn Undead. It only works on Undead. And not Undead at that. Some, like powerful vampires, liches, are immune to turning. For at least 2/3 of the game, this effect is pointless. I'm not sure if I want a fear effect. That could be problematic sometimes. And again, I'll just say that if something doesn't work on 2/3 of the stuff that it should work on, I think you have a design issue there. But he makes a lot of good points there. So let's see. Doltha says he thinks the real problem with the current Turn Undead is that most people can't make it work rather than it doesn't work. Standing Stone Games have had players report this fact since proposals were announced. Those who don't have a problem don't go around telling everyone, unlike those who are more surface with their complaints. I think he's onto something there. I think, a lot of people don't make it work. The people that can make it work effectively tend to be few and far between. I don't know. Are there any people do you have any turners in High Lords?
Yeah, we have one guy who hasn't been playing as much lately, who I really miss in riding the Storm out, because he can take his cleric in there and turn those giant skeletons really well. One huge thing that you can do is get that helmet out of Epic Necro 4. I can't even remember the name of it. Is it Seraphim?
Sounds right.
Yeah,
it's got almost all the stats right on that thing, and that is huge.
Yeah, something that I saw some people mention too, and I think it's in here later, is instead of changing the mechanic, add gear, which I think is a very viable way of doing it. There's not much gear for Turn Undead at all. So,
sure.
We'll talk about that in a minute. I think it's in here as well. FuzzyDuck81 wrote in and said, Turn Undead already does some damage against Undead for Paladins with the Knight of the Chalice enhancement. Sun Elves also get one. He uses it frequently, though, through lower to mid-levels as a nice AoE attack. It seems to me that the proposed changes were basically to make that a universal functionality and then make the crowd control element actually useful through switching it DC-based. The way he'd like to amend it I want to be able to outright kill crowders to make it a double save, so one save for the stun and then a second lower DCE save or die. Death Domain would then have the full stun DC for insta-kills and then a stun if they make the insta-kill save, similar to how EIN and Hurl work. Yeah, that's a viable way of doing it. It says, honestly, the main issue you can see with Turn Undead being primarily damage dealing is that it'll generate a lot of aggro from things that aren't destroyed outright. That's certainly a concern. On the topics of domains, he wrote in on animal domain. He says he can't see it staying as it is. He suspects it'll be reduced to something like 5 hit points per class and maybe 10 per epic level. So essentially a much stronger version of the toughness feat. Still great, but not ridiculous. That seems pretty reasonable. On Death Domain, he says he thinks it'll be a great one for cleric splashes because Death Ward SLA while keeping most of your main class features. Yes, please. Destruction Domain will be a fun one for battle clerics, frenzied berserkers who can heal. I want to see that build.
I think that's a really unique idea. I like that they have brought that into the game. The idea that there's one way to bypass that. The rage not being all cast. That's unique stuff like that. When they do that, that's really interesting to me.
This is one that I think I'm interested to hear what Voodu says on this. For the Earth Domains, he says Earthquake SLA might be problematic, drawing away from a very valuable role provided by Druids. He'd balance it out by making the cooldown far longer, similar to how Druids can get Storm of Vengeance as an SLA for a cheap superpower version that can't be used as often. Mr. Druid expert, what do you think about clerics getting Earthquake?
I am not the Druid expert, but as far as clerics getting Earthquake, I mean, it's certainly a very interesting option. I can certainly understand that some caster Druids out there might get their feelings hurt a little bit or feel a little bit slighted. I'm okay with it. Maybe I'll start playing cleric.
I actually don't find the Earth Domain to be all that OP because that SLA is really the only thing in there that's super exciting.
Sure.
I don't know that you're going to lose everything else the other domains offer just to get that one thing.
There'll be people that'll take it for sure. I still kind of say, like I said in the cast last week, maybe these shouldn't be SLAs. Maybe they should just add them to the spellbook. But there's lots of ways you can go. Good domain, going back to Fuzzy Duck, is cheap mega power blade bearers. He likes it. You can see this being multi-class with Warlock combined with Brilliance from Enlightened Spirit to make a build that can do AoE damage and temporary hit point buffers, as well as actual healing from the front line to make a party near unassailable. This is another. I really like these multi-class build ideas. Kind of exciting. War Domain. Good job. Holy Sword was changed a while back to be a competence bonus so it doesn't stack with others, or this would be sickeningly powerful for multi-classing, particularly combined with Swashbuckling, say even Kensai as well, which gives some big boosts on those specific weapon types for very low investment. Even so, Hand Axe and Light Pick in particular will still benefit from part of the Holy Sword boost in addition to what Swashbuckling gives. Then there's the base damage dice increase. Yeah, I think he's onto something here with a Swashbuckling War Domain Cleric with vampirism effects going on. That could be kind of interesting. So some great ideas here. Let's see. I think this is the last comment I have. This came from Fault Out on the forums. Just trying to sum this up. So this was a response to me saying people say it works fine in epics or in heroics. It needs to work in epics as well. Leading to the conclusion the system needs to change. He says he doesn't see how we go from two truths to the conclusion. The system needs to remain the same and just add some more boost for Epic, which we've already proposed with numbers to back it up. It's a very easy change. Sure. I think if I said system, I think my thoughts would more accurately be reflected as something needs to change. Also, this was kind of more in response to some comments I saw about saying that it works fine until you get to this level and it doesn't work very well. Well, if that's your argument for why it doesn't need to change, I would say that's not a good argument because you just said that doesn't work as designed for half the game. So, but yeah, I think there's some interesting other options to change them, adding more boost, and I think actually he said so one of the things they'd like to see that's been proposed, right, is more gear, right? Which I think is viable because right now you can get like 3 things that add a very static amount of bonuses to turn undead.
I think that's about right. Yeah,
Something like that.
So you could definitely change those into being more scalable things, and I think that would be great too. That'd be another way to go. See, he said you no longer need to worry about hit dice and bloated hit dice because it's changed to a DC. He said, so now you need to worry about the DC, and saves are all over the place. They're actually way higher than the hit dice, so a cleric will need to reach wizard-like saves with charisma. Yeah, I think that's a great point, a great thing to consider. So, It definitely, I think DC's definitely become they're easier to manage in terms of balance, I think, and it's easier to understand, I think. But yeah, I think it could be problematic and would have to be balanced well. He also said, if you're surrounded, if you're surrounded by 20 undead and you turn, you only turn like 10 of those currently. With the proposal, you could turn potentially all 20. He said that's true, but it's not better. The reason the death part of the turn undead was removed was because they thought turn undead is overpowered in heroics. Well, with the working DC and no limit to hit dice, turn undead is going to be even more overpowered. The way a cleric needs to act while turning is isolate a few undead that he can turn and hit multiple turns into small undead groups. It's not like a Sork, gather them all in one place, blast repeatedly with a fireball. You need to play it smart, and this was a fair limitation. I think he's got some fair points there. It will be interesting to see how they would balance that, I suppose, right? And let's see. He also said the system. I said the system moves away from binary, and that's a good thing. His response was the excuse has been used many times, and we accept it unconditionally, like it's a great thing. But when you come to think of what all your abilities do, if you find out that all you can do in the world is a portion of something, then you stop enjoying feeling like a hero. Which I think, sure, there's something there, right? Like it's a little, it's hard to draw a line between binary and not binary, I think. So it's a tough balancing thing. But he also said, he gave the example of AC. He says it moved from binary to meaningful. Now they can see what AC's place in the game, almost non-existent. I mean, it's more useful than it used to be. So, it says instead of the devs fixing the monster stats bloating to work with existing binary systems, they convert binary systems into stuff that does something, but not much. I think when you're going to talk about binary systems, and let me know what you think here, Voodoo, I think it has more to do with how the players view it, right? If a player is using a binary effect, either it works or it doesn't, like insta-kills or holding, right? If it works 95% of the time, they think it's great. If it only works about 50% of the time, I get the impression that a lot of players don't think that's a meaningful use of a meaningful effect.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what it is and how much resources you're putting into whatever it is that you're doing. Whether it's a spell that has a pass fail like an insta kill, or or if it's something simple like you're petrifying runestones, which may work 50% of the time. Well, that was really cheap to make. It doesn't really cost anything to use. But if you're spending a lot of spell points or other resources, and if you're failing 50% of the time, yeah, that can be a real turnoff. But if there's a way to increase your percent chance of success, then or there should be, and that's important.
Yeah. Let's see. Other stuff he said. He likes the flavor. I think I'm going to try and boil this last one out. He kind of likes the flavor. When he was a cleric for the first time, he tried using Turn Undead. It didn't work most of the time. Next life, he researched it a bit more, planned a bit more, understood a bit more, and then opened his. And then he got it to work and having an impact in the dungeon. The next life as a paladin, he found it to be really helpful, and it was awesome hearing from party members how impressed they were with turning him as a paladin. Every time he understands a peculiar ability and finds a way to utilize it, he opens what he calls a present that the DDO's gameplay offers. Every time he selects a +1 to damage and a +10 to PRR, he doesn't really find that to be interesting. I think that's fair. I don't know that changing... he was kind of, I think, referring to... he was responding to my comment, it'll be easier for new players to use it, which I think was kind of related to DCs, like changing it to DCs instead of hit dice. I don't necessarily think that making that change takes that away from it, personally. But I think he makes a good point that, we want these abilities to be cool and different, right? So there you go. So there's a bunch of comments on Turn Undead. Thank you to all the people who did comment, particularly respectfully. I think that conversation is great to have. And people raised a lot of good points that I hadn't considered as well. So, our survey question for the week, this comes from Storm. He wants to know, what should he craft from Legendary Green Steel? Got any advice for him there, Voodoo?
I really like some of the, as a band of casters, I really like some of the damage procs, like the Triple Earth one that can do some extra acid damage, which is nice. Then you've got the vacuum weapon that can add stacks of vulnerability, which is nice. I really like, on Voodoo, I use a legendary Radiance item that has a chance to blind the mobs that I do my bursts on, and it also has heal lamp on it too. So, which I have loved both of those effects, both the heal lamp and the blinding effect for Reaper mode.
Yeah, blinding is, we didn't talk about blinding very much as an effect, but it makes you harder to hit, which is very desirable. Some of my favorites from Legendary Greensteel, I really like on particularly my melee kind of builds, the one that extends your unconscious range.
That one's pretty cool.
Positive equipment. Yeah, I think you can get up to like 200 more.
Oh no, it's like over 300.
Is it 300? I don't remember the
Yeah.
numbers, but so it makes you harder to kill. Now, having said that, you still get incapacitated and you can't do anything, but you're not dead yet, which is always just fun to say in game. Like, I'm not dead yet. Can I have a heal, please?
What's nice about that item is that's an opposition item. So if you're rocking 2 opposition items, then you can get a big bonus to hit points as well. So the set bonuses are kind of quirky and hard to understand. You definitely want to read up on the wiki about how they work, and even the information there is not,
Easy.
I think there's still, because I think there's still information that isn't known about how there are, seems like 3 different kinds of set bonuses that you could do. But the opposition one is pretty straightforward. If you have 2 accessories, not weapon, 2 accessories that are opposition focused, you can get just with 2 items that are, let's say, opposition on each tier, you get I think 18% extra hit points.
That's just for 2 items?
For 2 items if all 3 tiers are opposition. But you want to make sure that you don't have conflicting tiers on one of them. Was it escalation? And I can't remember the other one because then that can nullify the effect. But yeah, having multiple opposition for the big bonuses to hit points is a really, really nice effect to have from your Legendary Greensteel accessories.
There's another one that I just made it, so I haven't really played with it, but I made a caster stick for my Warlock, I'm transitioning into being a DC caster, but also still with some DPS stuff. But I made a stat stick, so at level 26, it's plus 15, plus 7, plus 2 to Charisma, which is a pretty big bump from where he's at right now. But I also did it with the positive, so triple positive weapon. You can get temporary hit points once a minute. Which I've been told was recommended to me by another guy who plays Warlock. Actually, he's been on the show a few times. Benton recommended that as well. So there's some ideas for you. Really, as long as you're getting bonus, it's probably pretty hard to go wrong. I would recommend getting the set bonus, not the opposition, but on an individual weapon. If you align I would align the focuses to give you a bonus. But other than that, it's probably pretty hard to go wrong. I've seen a lot of people like the freezing one is pretty popular. I think salt's pretty popular these days. So there's a lot of really good options. With that, let's close out the show. Do you want to plug your channel?
Sure. My channel is Voodu Spice on YouTube. I run an official DDO fan site YouTube channel. It has over 500 videos that are helpful for both new players and experienced players alike. There's raid guides, quest guides, fun series, and my current series, which is the Dragonborn project, where I'm working through my 3 Dragonborn lives on Ginger Spice. That's in its final chapter right now. So, and then I'm maybe thinking about doing a Reaper life series after that. So, we'll see.
I want to see a video of the High Lords of Makir trying 10 Skull Shroud.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Yeah, I mean, we've been doing legendary normal shroud these days, just because some of our heavier hitters aren't playing as much anymore, and everybody wants to bring their lobies in off destinies because they want to run shroud for experience. So it's
no, they understand. I'm not meaning complete it. I just want to see how far you guys can get.
We can get to buffing.
You can get to the
That'll
first
be about
portal,
it.
right?
Yep. We can get through that portal.
That's about as far as we got. Um, so thanks also to Asheras. He had to leave, but thanks to Voodu. Thanks to everyone for listening to the show and all the other contributors for DDOCast. It really helps me put this show together. And thanks to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast for making DDO happen. And thanks to Cybers for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon as well. You can hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, you can comment on the episode wherever you might be able to find it. If you have a question you'd like to hear us answer, you can ask us there in the comment section, or you can send me an email at dodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media for the latest cast updates. Our closing tip for the week comes from Neha on Thalanis. Just have fun and play the game the way you want. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.